We really lent into the AI side of the equation with Peter Elstrom, but I really want to understand, what about the e-commerce flavor that we all know and love from Alibaba in many ways? How has that performed for the Chinese domestic audience?
Well, I think there was definitely some bright spots in that report. I mean, we were expecting reasonably good news after the last 6/18, which is the second biggest shopping festival, being up roughly about 15%. But when we look at the overall revenue of the company, I mean, we get rid of the Turkish e-commerce platform and a couple of their sell-offs in the retail space. Their revenue overall was up 10%. So I think that's probably a lot of the really good news that investors are focusing on, and why that stock is up so much despite the miss overall.
Yeah, I mean, the miss was in many ways completely digested when you're seeing the stock up more than 11% on the day, Jacob. Give us what your reading is on consumer sentiment, on the desire to be plowing into e-commerce, because many would say it's not great, but you perhaps have different signals.
Yeah, I mean, on the ground, we have seen, we're well past the years of 30% year-over-year growth, but we're talking still 15% growth in 2025 off the largest already e-commerce market in the world. Those are obviously incredibly good numbers for businesses and brands. I mean, the instant commerce too, which I think is also really important. I mean, that's basically since April where attention was put on that now too. And I think that roughly by our calculations, they could be up to 50% market share, really starting to compete with the likes of Meituan and whatever else. So it shows us the consumer's good. Fliggy, the travel platform's been really good for them. And I think that when we look at that restructuring now and being able to get back into north of double-digit growth, really effective strategies on how to compete with PDD, it looks pretty good in terms of their core business, their e-commerce business.
How does a flywheel work when you think about adding AI and the investment there into all of its other offerings that go direct to consumer?
Well, the AI, especially in terms of product recommendations and overall building a profile, and I think that's actually why the instant commerce was such a big part of this. If you look at how full stack really that product is, or the offering is in China, you've got everything from the C2C, the B2B, all the platforms, all the purchasing is there, including the instant commerce and overnight delivery. They're really gathering just a ton of data, and I think they're going to be a little bit better positioned than the likes of Meituan and some of the others that are focused on the consumer, because they're getting so much data. And yeah, there was really good news in terms of what they're doing with the AI models as well.
Jacob, what you do is you advise global brands about getting into Asia, such as China and Japan and the like. So how are global brands accessing a platform like Alibaba at the moment?
Well, they're doing it, they're engaging a lot more. I mean, even, overseas revenue was up, I think, almost 26, 27% as well, too. And that's a lot to do with the investments that have gone into Singapore. I mean, they're selling a lot of AI services to companies, too. And they're also helping to move a lot of products. I mean, their Sinow logistics network is really helping to connect Southeast Asia, too. And to be able to use kind of China as a hub, with their bonded free trade zones, of really just dumping your products into that market, in terms of mass, and being able to sell all over through the region now. I mean, they also own, one of the largest platforms in Southeast Asia with Lazada too. So it's pretty exciting in terms of what they're building out.
Talking of dumping of products, Jacob, we're about to have a conversation all about de minimis, but I want to ask you about geopolitics. I mean, how has it affected Alibaba and its ability to grow?
Well, Alibaba's probably been the one that's been, there's been a lot of news. It's not just Alibaba, but I mean, we saw the Tencent releases a couple weeks, so everybody's growing. Everybody seems to be getting the compute that they need. The data centers are growing really fast, one of the top growing divisions. So it doesn't seem to be affecting the numbers. I mean, this isn't the first time they've gone through tariff increases. There was, the first trade war as well, and they've seemed to come through all of that. It's certainly stronger, and who knows, maybe they would have been growing faster without these, but it's hard to see, or it's hard to even think that the damage or the let's say headwinds that they're trying to impose with these policies having really any effect. And I think what you're going to see now is these restrictions really start to get lifted. There's really no point, and it's hurting U.S. companies, I think, just as much as it was designed to impede the Chinese ones. So I expect more opening up through the rest of the year.
Interesting. So, because your expertise is so important here, because you're on the ground, you're understanding what's going on there. And from a US perspective, we're seeing limitations to NVIDIA and AMD being able to sell in, having to give 15% away, not getting licenses as quickly as they might like, feeling that they're having to give away the opportunity. Jacob, you're not feeling that that's going to be in long-term standing?
No, I don't. I mean, look at, Qwen 3, the Coder model, and a lot of the other models too, they're keeping up internationally. So the lack of chips and the lack of compute isn't hindering these models. Tencent, released a couple weeks ago, said the same thing. They have all the chips that they need, and the advances that this has spurned domestically at Huawei and Shanghai Semiconductor have been really strong. So they're not serving, I think, their intended purpose, and there's really no point. The companies don't want these restrictions on anymore, and people want to do more business over there.
But do they even want the chips, Jacob?
That's another good question. I mean, how far are they now? How far are they developed in those 2 years out of necessity? That's a really good question. I mean, we're going to see developments, and we'll find out. I mean, NVIDIA's not doing very well today on this news. It's probably not a very good sign for them. So hopefully those doors open up and they can get into that market ASAP, and that there's still demand at those price points compared to what's being produced in China.